I wasn't even looking for it. I was just scrolling to distract myself. You know, one of those half-awake nights where your brain refuses to shut up? And then there it was. A photo. Him. On a cruise ship. Standing next to her. Smiling like the world had never hurt him. Sunlight hitting their faces. Champagne glasses in hand. Like something out of a travel ad. My thumb froze mid-scroll. I felt this weird weight in my chest. Like I couldn't breathe right. Not anger. Not sadness. Just stunned. Like my whole body forgot what it was supposed to do. See? I'm not just some bitter ex. I'm a widow. My husband passed away 3 years ago. And somewhere in the mess of grieving and rebuilding, I met this man, someone who promised me warmth, understanding, and maybe a second chance. I trusted him. I believed him when he said he had nothing, and I gave everything I had left. I let go of something precious to be with him. Something I'd been saving for years. My one dream. And now, he's out there, living his best life with someone else, while I'm here, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. But before I tell you how I found out who he really was, you need to know about the dream I gave up, because that's where this story really begins. Italy was always our dream, not a fancy one, not a bucket list in a scrapbook kind of thing. Just something we used to whisper about on quiet Sunday mornings, over pancakes and black coffee. Rome, Florence, Venice. The names felt like poetry to me. My husband, Paul, knew how much I loved art and old streets and stories, and he'd always say, "One day, hun, we'll get there. Just you wait." We never did. Life has a way of pushing dreams down the road until there's no road left. Medical bills, a leaky roof, helping our son through college. The dream never disappeared. It just kept getting postponed. But I held on to it, quietly. Every month, I'd tuck away $20 in an envelope labeled Italy and hide it in the back of my dresser drawer. It made me feel like I hadn't let go. After Paul passed, the silence in the house got loud. I filled it with routine gardening, baking, volunteering at the church on Tuesdays. I didn't complain. That's never been my way. I've always believed in being grateful, even when things are small. And in some ways, life felt peaceful again. Not joyful, but steady. That envelope stayed right where it was. Over time, it grew fat not just with cash, but with hope. I even started looking at travel blogs, bookmarking places I wanted to see. Paul wasn't there to hold my hand, but I imagined taking a photo where he might have stood, and somehow, that made the dream feel alive again. I never told anyone about the envelope. It was mine. My quiet promise to myself that life wasn't over. That beauty and adventure could still be waiting. But then my son called. He sounded frantic, almost ashamed. He said he needed help, that it was serious, that there was no one else. And just like that, I opened the drawer. I looked at the envelope, heavy with years of waiting, and I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know what would come next. He showed up without warning. No call, no text. Just the knock on the door hurried, uneven, like he couldn't wait another second. I hadn't seen him in weeks. My son, my baby, even if he's in his 30s now. He looked pale, tense, not like himself. His eyes darted around the room as if they were looking for a safe place to land, but kept landing back on me. There was something in his posture, the way he hunched his shoulders, rubbed his palms together, that made my heart clench. He said things had gotten bad, real bad, that there was a mix-up with a business partner, a debt he didn't see coming, legal fees, a deadline. He was talking fast, his voice low, like he didn't want the neighbors to hear. Or maybe he didn't want me to really hear. I just listened. And while he talked, my mind was already racing. I was trying to follow the numbers he threw out, the names, the explanations. But none of that mattered, really, because I was looking at my child in pain. And when a mother sees her child in pain, the rest of the world fades away. He didn't ask at first. He just said he didn't know what to do, that he felt like a failure, that he didn't want to burden me, but didn't know who else to turn to. And I told him it was okay, that I was here, that we'd figure it out. I said those things before I even knew what it really was. Eventually, he mentioned the number, 13,000. My heart stuttered a bit, not because of the money, although that's no small amount, but because I knew what he was asking, even if he didn't say it directly. I thought about the envelope, about all those years, the small sacrifices, the way I'd walk past the travel posters in the library and imagine myself in them, how I'd whisper someday to myself like it was a prayer. And then I thought about him, sitting across from me, looking like a scared teenager again. I remembered bandaging his knees when he fell off his bike and staying up with him during finals, making grilled cheese and hot cocoa at midnight. I remembered him sobbing when Paul died, how tightly he hugged me at the funeral. I also remembered how his wife barely looked me in the eye the last time I visited, how she always seemed cold, how she didn't say a word when he asked to talk to me alone that day. Little things. At the time, I brushed them off, but now they felt like loose threads I wasn't sure I should pull. Still, I went to the drawer. He didn't see me hesitate. I didn't let him. I handed him the envelope, both hands, like it was something sacred. And in a way, I didn't cry. I didn't scold. I just told him I hoped it helped. He hugged me hard and quick. Then he left. The house felt heavier after he was gone, quieter, like it knew something I didn't yet. But I told myself I did the right thing, that any mother would have done the same. After all, what's money compared to your child's well-being? I sat by the window that night, staring out into the dark, convincing myself I'd still make it to Italy one day. Somehow, some other way. Maybe I needed to believe that to keep from unraveling. I was just scrolling absent-minded. Really. One of those quiet Sunday mornings where the coffee tastes more bitter than usual, and the silence feels heavier than it should. I opened Instagram. I don't even know why I'm not much for social media, but sometimes I like to check in, see what people are up to. That's when I saw it. The photo was bright, blinding, blue skies, champagne flutes clinking. A wide white cruise ship deck sprawled behind them like something out of a travel magazine. My son and his wife, both smiling, tanned, happy. The caption read, "Sunset Magic in Santorini. Grateful, couples goals." At first, I didn't react. I just stared. My brain couldn't catch up. I clicked the location tag, Greece. I scrolled through the next photo, and the next. There they were, lounging in a private hot tub, posing beside plates of lobster and wine, touring ruins in flowy outfits, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. My hand started shaking. I went back to the caption. Grateful. For what for my money? I clicked her profile. The cruise had started just 2 weeks after that night in my living room. 2 weeks after I handed over everything I had saved. My fingers felt numb as I opened my banking app. The transfer had gone through exactly $13,000 wired to his account. Then I opened my messages, scrolled back to his last text. Thanks again. Mom, you don't know how much this means. I promise I'll make things right. Right. I zoomed in on one of the photos, the champagne label. I remembered seeing that exact bottle once in a travel vlog, where they said it cost $300. $300. That's almost a month of groceries for me. It all started to tilt. I thought about his voice that night, how he avoided eye contact, how she didn't speak, how fast he'd left once the envelope was in his hands. Pieces started falling into place, jagged and painful. I went to the comments under the post. People were congratulating them, saying things like, "So jealous, and you guys deserve this." Deserve? I felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the money. It was the trust, the love, the belief that I was helping him survive something. But he was thriving. Somewhere between Mykonos and Athens. He was sipping rosé while I was here, microwaving leftovers, telling myself I'd made a noble choice. I felt small, naive, used. I replayed the moment I handed him that envelope, the warmth in my chest, the relief on his face, the way I'd told myself I was doing the right thing, because that's what mothers do. But mothers don't deserve this. I closed the app, sat there, staring at the wall, not crying, not yet, just unraveling. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a lie dressed in desperation. And now I had to face it, all of it, not as a mother, but as a woman who had been deceived by the person she loved most in the world. And I knew this story wasn't over, not by a long shot. I did not call him. I did not text him. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table for hours, staring at my phone, feeling a shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and raw, but something new was rising, something steadier, firmer, a resolve. I wiped my coffee mug slowly, deliberately. I didn't want to rush. I wanted to feel how real this was that he had taken from me, and now I had the chance, the right to change what came next. First, I stopped answering his calls immediately. I let them ring. I let them go to voicemail. I didn't explain. I just withdrew. It felt like pulling my energy back, closing a door gently, not slamming it. Then I made small changes. I changed account passwords. I reviewed my bank statements. I started drafting a new will, quiet, careful, protective of what was mine now. I noted what I would leave to grandchildren, educational funds, safeguards so that no one could simply ask and receive from me again. In the evenings, I sat with my journals. I asked myself questions I had avoided. Was I partly to blame? Did I turn a blind eye to the warning signs because I preferred believing he was in crisis? Did I excuse little inconsistencies because I loved him so much I couldn't see them clearly? I remembered when he was a child. He broke a toy and lied, and I comforted him. I remember his first heartbreak, how hard he cried on my shoulder. I remember sacrificing vacation weekends so he'd have what he needed: sports gear, books, a good school, all of it out of love. But love doesn't mean losing yourself. Flash to now, him sipping rosé in Santorini, me recalculating my life with trembling hands. I caught my reflection in the window, older, lines deeper, eyes more cautious. I told myself this would not break me again. I took up walks early in the morning. I planted new flowers in the garden. I let the wind fill me with grace. The ache in my chest softened, replaced by quiet determination. I practiced saying no in my head, no to guilt without evidence, no to instant rescues, no to empty promises. When I opened my laptop one morning, I found a draft of a promissory note. I drafted a version myself, outlining repayment terms. I left space for signatures, interest, accountability. I did not send it yet, but I felt strength imagining them reading it someday. My phone buzzed with another message from him. I read it while breathing deeply, then archived it without response. A calm clarity took hold. I didn't need to explain myself to them. I only needed to stand firm in my truth. And in that clarity, I reclaimed a little of me again. Not the version who gave blindly, but someone who loved, yes, and protected, yes, and would not let betrayal define her. When evening fell, I stood by the window and watched golden light wash over the garden. I whispered to myself, I am enough. I deserve honesty. I deserve dignity. At that moment, I knew I was no longer preparing to run. I was preparing to face the storm. He came over on a Sunday, like everything was normal, brought a little box of pastries, kissed my cheek. I could feel it right away, the unease behind my smile. He still had no idea I knew. We sat at the table, same place I had cried weeks before, but this time, there were no tears in my eyes, just a quiet stillness, heavy with truth. I asked him how things were going. He said, better now, with that same boyish grin that used to melt me. My heart didn't move this time. It only watched. I slid my phone toward him, opened to the photo. Him and Melissa on the deck of a ship, wine glasses lifted to the sun. The caption was a joke about escaping reality. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. His face froze. For the first time in a long time, he looked small-cornered, unsure. He reached for words, excuses maybe. But I raised a hand, gently, and shook my head. I told him I wasn't angry, not in the way he probably expected. I said I just wanted to understand how we got here, how a son could look into his mother's eyes, spin a story about desperation, and take what she had saved for her dream, for her healing. He started to say it wasn't what it looked like, that they had booked it long ago, that canceling would have cost more, but his voice trailed off. He knew. I told him I didn't need him to explain anymore, that explanations wouldn't restore what was broken between us, not just the money, but the trust, the quiet belief that I had mattered to him beyond what I could give. And then I said what I had waited weeks to say, that I loved him, always would. But I could no longer keep paying for his comfort with pieces of my soul. He looked stunned, hurt, maybe even ashamed, but he didn't deny it. He just nodded, and in that silence, I finally breathed. I stood up and cleared the dishes. He didn't follow me into the kitchen. He just sat there, fiddling with the pastry box, not sure what to do with himself now that the story had changed. I didn't need to slam the door or raise my voice. The truth had already landed, heavy and final. I had spoken. I had let the truth out into the air between us. And in doing so, I felt something inside me close. Not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. I no longer needed him to see me. I had seen myself, and that was enough. As he left, he asked if I wanted him to call later. I said, if you want to talk, not ask. He nodded again, but I don't think he knew what to say. And that's where I left it. Not for revenge, for peace. Somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting, not just for Italy or for my son to say sorry. I stopped waiting for people to recognize my worth, or for life to give me back what I had given away without question. This isn't the story I ever thought I'd tell. Not the story of a dream stolen, but of a woman who finally woke up. Who looked in the mirror and realized that love doesn't mean disappearing. That motherhood, for all its beauty, should never cost you your dignity. It hurt more than I'll ever fully explain. Watching someone I raised become the person who deceived me, who used my hope, my grief, and my silence to his advantage. But I've learned something in that pain. I was complicit, not in the lie, but in the long pattern of saying yes when I meant no, of giving until I had nothing left for myself, of believing that love always meant sacrifice instead of balance. There's no perfect ending to this. I didn't get my money back. I didn't book a trip to Italy out of spite. I still haven't seen Florence or touched the stones of Rome. But I did start walking again. In the mornings, just after sunrise, when it's quiet enough to hear myself think. I've started painting again 2 small things, mostly flowers in street corners from memory or imagination. And I've started writing down pieces of my life, not for anyone else, but for me. To remember that I am still here, that I matter. If you're watching this, and you've ever given too much, waited too long, loved someone more than you loved yourself, I want you to know it's not too late to turn around, to draw a line, to start again. Not in anger, but in truth. Dreams don't have to be expensive. They just have to be yours. And sometimes, the greatest journey isn't to some far-off place, it's back to yourself. So no, I didn't get to Italy, but I got something else. Me.